Welcome to 16 weeks of SATs, week 6, and this week we're going to be exploring long multiplication. Now, long multiplication or the grid method is an essential skill for the Key Stage 2 arithmetic test. And now the reason why is because in every paper you're guaranteed to get 2 of these questions, and each of them are worth 2 marks. So it's really important that we can master this strategy and understand it so that we can get the 4 marks in every paper that is available to you, just like long division. So long multiplication and long division, there's always 2 questions and they're always worth 2 marks. So considering it's a really straightforward strategy, lots of people can get a little bit worried by this when they see some of the larger numbers that we've got to work with. But if we look at short multiplication from last week, long multiplication is just an extra step beyond that to carry out an additional series of multiplications and then an addition at the end. So it is very straightforward. It's just making sure that we carry out all the steps. Now, if you want to dive into it a little bit deeper after this video, I definitely recommend picking up a copy of Sats Like a Ninja. That takes you through all the strategies that you need, including long multiplication. So as ever, I'm going to be taking you through some example questions of my own and modeling how and why we lay the question out like we need to. Then we're going to move into some SATs examples, and then I've got a question bank at the end for you guys to complete on your own. So I hope you'll find this video useful, and by the end of it, really, we should be looking to pick up those 4 marks from the 2 long multiplication questions that you will get in your SATs paper. So let's get stuck into it. So welcome to long multiplication, the grid method. So we're going to get straight into long multiplication versus short multiplication. Now, last week with short multiplication, what we found was that it was basically multiplying by a 1-digit number. And all long multiplication is basically multiplying by a 2-digit number, or that's what you will encounter in the SATs, okay? So you're going to multiply by a 1 and a 10, which requires us to take an extra step. So in this first example of 14 times 23, I'm just going to show you how to lay this out effectively. Now, really what we always want to do with these questions is put the larger number on top. So we're going to lay this question out now. So it's a multiplication. We're going to be multiplying 23 by 14. And again, it's really important that we concentrate on our columns and the spaces that are presented within the columns. We want to keep this nice and clear, nice and routine. All right. So the process is going to begin the same, is that we're always starting in this ones column. So we've got the 1s and the 10s. We're going to multiply this 4 by 3 and record our answer. That may involve some carrying and adjusting, and then we're going to multiply 4 by 2. So essentially, we're going to multiply this by these 2 numbers, and that will create our first row of answer. All right, just like a short multiplication. But then the next step is we then have to multiply by a 10. All right, so we'll go through the first step, and then I'll show you the second step. So step 1 is carry out essentially what is a short multiplication. All right, so we're going to multiply the 1. So we're going to do 4 times 3. So 4 times 3 is 12. So let's get the pen up. And then we would carry the 1. Now, what might happen here is we might get a little bit confused with where we're going to carry. All right, because we could carry up here, but then we've got different. So it's important to be clear, and it's up to you which way you want to do this. I tend to like to carry into the square that I'm going to be working with. So we've got 12 as an answer. So I'm going to carry the short 1 into here, all right, just as a reference point. All right, so I know that that's, for me, I'm working in here now. And then when I come to it, I'll have to add this 1. And it's not really in the way because it's just very small. So the next step is to then, obviously we've done 4 times 3 is 12. We've carried the 10. Then it's 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Add the 1 is 9. So we can write 9 in there. So we have, and obviously I've gone over that little 1 because that's now sort of used, so it doesn't matter. So we have 92, which is great. We should be fairly confident with that. And both those calculations were really simple. 4 times 3, 4 times 2. Dead easy. Now the next stage, and this is one of the key bits that people forget, is we're now multiplying by 10. Okay, because we've got the 1s column. If we go back to the place value, we've got 1s we've got tens, and if there were numbers here, we would have hundreds. So this 1 here is actually 10. So because and if it was a 2 there, that would represent 20. And if there was a 3 there, that would represent 30. So because we're not just multiplying by 1, and it's 1 times 3 is 3, it's actually 10 times 3. So our automatic step here is to put in a placeholder 0, which represents the fact that we are multiplying by 10. So whatever number we put in here now will fall in line with a 10 value, because essentially, if we didn't have this 0 here and we did 1 times 3 is 3, we would be saying we have three ones, but we don't. We're actually doing 10 times 3. So in the short version, we would do 1 times 3 now is 3. So the answer then goes in here. And that makes sense now, because it's actually 10 times 3 is 30. But because long multiplication is a shorthand strategy, that's what happens. Now we can then move on to the next step. So we've multiplied 1 by 3. We're now going to do 1 times 2. Very, very simple. 1 times 2 is 2. So we'll put that in the next column. So straight away, we can see that we've got our 2 rows of answers. We've got row 1, row 2, row 1, row 2. Fantastic. Now, the final step is to make sure we're a little bit tight on space at the bottom, is to make sure that we total these together. So we need to do a column addition. So we're going to add these numbers together, because currently they're just separate. And that should be very straightforward. So we're going to do 2 add 0 is 2. Very simple. 9 add 3 is 12. Carry the 1 wherever we want to carry it. And then 2 add 1 is 3. So our answer would be 322, as we can see here. Now, if we had a blue box that we were going to transfer that into, that's what we would be looking to do. So essentially, that's probably as much time as I'm really going to spend explaining it, is that we lay out probably the larger number on the top. We then multiply from the ones column. So we do 4 times 3 and then 4 times 2. That gives us 92. And then we do placeholder 0, very important before we start answering the tens column. Then we just carry the tens column out as normal. Times 3, times 2. That will give us our answer. And then the final step, which is add them together. So again, if we look at another problem, in the SATs paper, this would already be laid out for you. You'll see this when we get to the SATs example. So you won't just get a question, it will already be laid out here for you. So let's just go ahead and lay it out. Again, with the strategy of having the larger number on the top, we're going to have 143 times 23. Very simple, okay? Now, again, the 3-digit number here may slightly throw you. There isn't any extra steps, okay? There will be an extra multiplication, but we've got 2 rows because we're multiplying by a 2-digit number. So that's row 1, which goes here, and then row 2, which goes here. So let's have a go at it. So very simply, we're going to do 3 times 3. So again, we're going to do 3 times 3, 3 times 4, 3 times 1, and that's going to give us the answer. Essentially, it's partitioning. 3 times 1, 3 times 40, 3 times 100. But we're doing it in a short version here. So 3 times 3 is 9. So we'll pop that in here. 3 times 4 is 12. So we're now doing 3 times 4 is 12. So put the 2 in, carry. And then we're doing 3 times 1 is 3, add the 1 is 4. So from this first set of calculations, 3 times 3, 3 times 40, 3 times 100, we've got 429. Now, that's that set checked off. We need to do 2 times 3, 2 times 40, and 2 times 100. Okay, but because this is a tens number, we need to get autopilot on this, is this placeholder 0 needs to go in first. Otherwise, the answer, or the number that we generate, will be incorrect. So again, we're now going to do 2 times 3, which is 6. Very, very simple. 2 times 4, which is 8. And 2 times 1, which is 2. Very, very simple. There was nothing complicated about that. Nothing complicated at all. And then the final step, which people forget, is we must add these two numbers together. All right, so we do 9 add 0 is 9. 2 add 6 is 8. 4 add 8 is 12. So we're going to carry. And then 2 add 1 is 3. So our final answer would be 3,289. Very, very straightforward. What up here could have seemed like, oh gosh, quite a tricky question. 23 times 143. Actually, that's 2 marks taken. Well done. We can move on to the next question. Now, again, these are the really common questions. Is a 2-digit by 3-digit. So again, very simple. We can look at this and think, oh gosh. Now I'm working with smaller numbers like 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, just because it keeps the process to begin with much simpler, so we can concentrate on layout and presentation rather than the actual calculations, okay? Because I want you to get the layout and the process correct. Now, some people, as soon as they spot that this is a long multiplication, I'll just show you this time, is that they like to put the placeholder 0 in straight away, because that's the main thing. The main problem with this question is when people go through this whole strategy is they forget the placeholder 0. So as soon as you realize it's a long multiplication, making sure that placeholder 0 in the second row is really, really important. Then we can lay out the question. So we're going to have, and obviously this needs to be in the ones column. So we've got 245 times 32. And then at this point, this is when I would be putting in my placeholder 0. Once I've worked out my ones column is ones, tens, hundreds, I'd then now, before I start the question, I'd be putting in the placeholder 0. So I know that when I'm in the rush of the sats and everything else that's going on, I've just autopiloted this strategy and put the placeholder 0 in. So now we can do it. We're going to do the first row, which is multiplying by the ones. So we're going to do 2 times 5, 2 times 4, 2 times 2. Let's do that. So 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Add the 1 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. Fantastic. So we've got that done and dusted. Now we can move on to multiplying the tens, but we've already got our placeholder 0 in place, so we can just go straight into the strategy. 3 times 5 is 15, so we're going to put the 5 in, carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12, add the 1 is 13, carry the 1. And then 3 times 2 is 6, add the 1 is 7. So we end up with our 2 rows of answers, our ones row and our tens row with our placeholder 0. So again, final step that we mustn't forget is to carry out an addition. So we start the ones column, 0 add 0 is 0, 9 add 5 is 14, carry the 1, 4 add 3 is 7, add the 1 is 8, and then 7 add nothing, it essentially just drops down. So we end up with 7,840. Very, very simple, job done. 2 marks, we can move on. Now, again, as we keep working, you can obviously pause these and have a go first, and then watch how I take you through the question. So again, we've got classic 2-digit times 3-digit. We're going to lay the 3-digit out and then the 2-digit and pop our placeholder 0 in as a really good strategy. So 346, this will already be laid out for you in the sats, times 17. And then I'm going to pop in my placeholder 0 because I know I'm going to need that. Let's get straight into it. 7 times 6, let's go. 7 times 6 is 42, so we're going to put the 2 in, carry the 4. 7 times 4 is 28, and this is where things start. So with this question, this is why presentation and our layout and preparation is so important, because we're now having to think a little bit. 7 times 6 is 42, 7 times 4 is 28, add the 4 is 32. We need to start thinking a little bit. So we don't want to be having to think about layout and presentation when we're actually doing calculations, because sometimes it can be just too much to think about. So let's go back to it. 7 times 4 was 28, add the 4 is 32. So we put the 2 in, carry the 3. 7 times 3 is 21, add the 3 is 24. So we carry 4, carry the 2. There's nothing else there. So we carry the 2. So we end up with 2, 4, 2, 2. Fantastic. Now we've already got our placeholder 0. And then now, because we're multiplying by a 1, even though it's a 10, it's very, very simple. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 3 is 3. And again, we've got to a situation where we can now add at the end. We must remember to add. 2 add 0 is 2. 2 add 6 is 8. 4 add 4 is 8. 2 add 3 is 5. So we didn't have to do any carry in there either. So quite quickly, what is 17 times 346, which is looking quite complicated, by just being organized, laying everything out effectively. We've got 2 sets of multiplications, and then we need to total them to get our answer. Now, this is my final example, and this one is slightly different because we have 2 digits by 4 digits. Now, we don't need to let us be thrown here. Once we lay the question out and see that we're multiplying by 2 digits, it's just the same process, okay? And these are common in the SATs as well. So let's just get into laying it out. And remember, this will be laid out for you anyway. 3, 2, 1, 4 times 46. And again, the key is making sure, if we're thinking about layout, is making sure that our ones column is aligned. All right, so making sure that this column, in both of these numbers, the 6 and the 4 are the ones. So if we make sure they're aligned, then everything else is going to fall into place. And again, at the presentation stage, I'm putting in my placeholder 0 in this ones column. So we're organized and ready. So we can basically get straight into it. 6 times 4. So we're going to do 6 times 4, 6 times 1, 6 times 2, 6 times 3. All right. So let's start. 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6. Add the 2 is 8. 6 times 2 is 12. So we're going to put the 2 in, carry the 1. And then 6 times 3 is 18. Add the 1 is 19. There's nothing else happening there. So we have the 1 that drops in. So we have 19,284, quite a large number. And common sense check, that makes sense because 6 times 3,000 would be 18,000. So I'd expect it to be around this number. So that sort of makes sense because I can't know exactly what that is. Then we move into the tens. So we're going to start with 4 times 4, 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 6. So we're working along from right to left, just like all the other strategies. So 4 times 4 is 16. So we put the 6 in, carry the 1. 4 times 1, easy, is 4. Add the 1 is 5. 4 times 2 is 8. And then 4 times 3 is 12. And again, there's nothing else to happen now. So that's just going to remain. So quite quickly here, we've got ourselves into a very large number. We're just going to, yeah, we should be okay. So we've got quite a large number. And again, everything here has just come back to presentation. If we got messy here, we'd be in a situation where we're struggling potentially. So again, 4 add 0 is 4. 8 add 6 is 14. Carry the 1. 5 add 2 or 2 add 5 is 7. Add the 1 is 8. 9 add 8 is 17. Carry the 1. 1 add 2 is 3. Add the 1 is 4. And then 1 add nothing. Essentially, the 1's going to drop down. So basically, we have our answer, which is 147,844. But again, everything here that you see comes back to, have we laid it out effectively? Have we got our placeholder 0? And then have we just gone through the process logically of ones, tens, hundreds, and then if there is 1,000s, great. And if we do that, and we lay it out effectively, neatly, we will get the 2 marks. So as we can see here, this is our typical SATs example. So we've got show your method, and basically they've laid the question out for you. So we have our place value. I'm just going to do this one zoomed out, so it might look a little bit small. And on some of the future examples in the next screen, I'll maybe zoom in so it's just a bit more visible. But you won't. But I wanted you to see the whole question, how it's laid out. So again, our final answer must go in here. So if I saw this question myself, my first thing would be to just think, right, we need to lay this out effectively. I know that we've got a long multiplication or a grid method, and I want to get my placeholder 0 in pretty much straight away. So now I'm set and ready to go. Essentially, I've got my 2 rows for the multiplication, and then I've got my final row for the addition. And this bottom bar just separates it. So as soon as I see the 2 marks, so we've got our 2 marks down here to the right. So if we come right down, 2 marks, we know if it's 2 marks, it's telling us long multiplication, grid method, we're multiplying by 2 digits, and we can get started really, really quickly. So we would start with, again, I'll just show you. So we're going to do 3 times 5, 3 times 8, 3 times 7. All right, and that's going to populate this row. Exactly what we've been doing. So 3 times 5 is 15. So we put the 5 in, carry the 1. 3 times 8 is 24. Add the 1 is 25. So again, we put the 5 in, carry the 2. 3 times 7 is 21. Add the 2 is 23. So again, even though they've been very helpful and given us this, there's not lots of room to work in. So we need to be really clear. So you can see that I'm just taking my time, but also working quickly. Now, because we're multiplying by a 10, we're multiplying by 20 now, essentially, because we've got ones, tens, hundreds. So it's essentially 20 times 5. So we've put our placeholder 0 in. So we can do 2 times 5 is 10. So that's 0, carry the 1. 2 times 8 is 16. Add the 1 is 17. So we put the 7 in, carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14. Add the 1 is 15. Okay, nothing else happening. So that 1 stands alone. Now at that point, we're basically doing our addition. 5 add 0 is 5. 5 add 0 is 5. 3 add 7 is 10. So we're going to carry the 1. 2 add 5 is 7. Add the 1 is 18. Sorry, 2 add 5 is 7. Add the 1 is 8. And then there's nothing to add to this 1, so just going to drop down. So we get our answer of 18,055. So again, that must get transferred into this box of 18055, and then we would move on. Now that would get you the 2 marks. We don't need to worry about anything else. We just need to make sure that all of these stages are done effectively. We add at the end, and then that answer gets put into the answer box. So again, 3-digit by 2-digit, 2 marks. It's a long multiplication. My first thought is to go, right, I need my placeholder 0 in. So I'm going to grab a ruler. I'm going to draw my line. So I've got my 2 rows for the multiplications, multiplying by the ones and the 10s, and then I've got my addition here. So I want my placeholder 0 in this column. So I'm going to drop it straight in just to help me not have to think about that later on. And now I'm going to do 7 times 6, 7 times 3, 7 times 8. Okay. So 7 times 6 is 42. So I'm going to put the 2 in, carry the 4. 7 times 3 is 21. Add the 4 is 25. Carry the 2. 7 times 8 is 56. Add the 2 is 58. So we're going to put the 8 in, carry the 5. All right. So again, we get 5, 8, 5, 2. Perfect. Now again, we're multiplying by the 10s now. Got our placeholder 0. Fantastic. We can move on. So 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6. Add the 1 is 7. And then 2 times 8 is 16. Carry the 1. There's nothing else to do, so that 1 just becomes. And then we're in the realities of adding. So we need to add. So 2 add 0, very simply, is 2. 5 add 2 is 7. 8 add 7 is 15. Carry the 1. 5 add 6 is 11. Add the 1 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 add 1 is 2. So again, 2, 2, 5, 7, 2. Making sure that we take the answer down and we transfer it into this final answer box. So again, quite straightforward on what could be worrying, taking it all the way down, making sure that we write the answer in the box. And so again, just so we can see this one a little bit clearer, I've just zoomed in a little bit so it's not as hectic. And again, you would still transfer your answer down in the bottom corner, but anyway. So this again is a long multiplication, nothing to worry about. As soon as we see it, we're thinking, great, easy peasy. We're going to draw our line. We're going to pop our placeholder 0 in here. And in fact, we can use a little bit of a thicker pen, which is great. Placeholder 0. And then we're going to get into multiplying by the 1. So we'll do 3 times 7, 3 times 0, 3 times 6. And then we'll do 8 times 7, 8 times 6. And we can go through there. So again, the key thing here is just making sure that we lay things out effectively in what is a tight space so that we can get the answer. All right, so here we go. So 3 times 7 is 21, so we'd put the 1 in, carry the 2. 3 times 0 is 0, add the 2 is 2, so very straightforward. And then 3 times 6 is 18, so we'd put the 8 in, carry the 1. There's nothing else to do, so that becomes very straightforward. We've now multiplying by the 8 here, which is multiplying by an 80, so we've got our placeholder 0 in here. So when we do 8 times 7 is 56, we're ready to roll. So 8 times 7 is 56, so we put the 6 in, carry the 5. 8 times 0 is 0, add the 5, so we get 5. And then 8 times 6 is 48, so we put the 8 in, carry the 4. And there's nothing else to happen, so we've just got 4 there. Now at this point, very simply, we can just add up the two parts of the answer. So 1 add 0 is 1, 2 add 6 is 8, 8 add 5 is 13, so we carry the 1. 1 add 8 is 9, add the 1 is 10, carry the 1. 4 add 1 is 5. So at that point, the answer would go down into the bottom corner, where if there was a SATS paper, we would need to transfer that into the answer box, very simply. So we'll do one more question here, and we'll take our way through it. So again, straight away we would see it's a long multiplication. So we're drawing the line and then we're popping in our placeholder 0. Now, as you can see here, we've now got multiplying by 4 digits. So we've got a 2-digit number times a 4-digit number. So we're going to have an extra calculation in each step, which will create a larger number, but that's absolutely fine. There's nothing to worry about in this problem. All right, we know pretty much all these tables. It's just about laying things out effectively to get to the right place. So let's go. So we'll just go through the steps. 2 times 8, 2 times 6, 2 times 4, 2 times 3. Then we've got our placeholder 0 for times 60, 6 times 8, 6 times 6, 6 times 4, 6 times 3. So it's just making sure that we work through each step. So 2 times 8 is 16. So we put the 6 in, carry the 1. 2 times 6 is 12, add the 1 is 13. 2 times 4 is 8, add the 1 is 9. And then 2 times 3 is 6. We're then multiplying by the 6. 6 times 8, 6 times 6, 6 times 4, 6 times 3. Placeholder 0, ready to go. So 6 times 8 is 48. So we put the 8 in, carry the 4. 6 times 6 is 36. Add the 4 is 40. So we put the 0 in, carry the 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Add the 4 is 28. Carry the 2. And then 6 times 3 is 18. Add the 2 is 20. So we put the 0 in, carry the 2. So again, just being clear as we go through it. And we know we can see those smaller little numbers just above here, but that's fine. So at this point, we can go through and add up to get our answer. So 6 add 0 is 6. 3 add 8 is 11. So we're going to carry the 1. 9 add 0 is 9. Add the 1 is 10. Carry the 1. 8 add 6 is 14. Add the 1 is 15. 0 add 1 is 1. And then 2 add nothing is 2. So again, we get our answer. That needs to be transferred down here. So 2, 1, 5, making sure it's clear. 0, 1, 6. Now, if you make a mistake here, double check it. 2, 1, 5, 0, 1, 6. 2, 1, 5, 0, 1, 6. Great. Make sure it's within the blue box. And if you make a mistake, use your rubber, rub it out, and write it clearly again for the marker. If you write it here, or just like, oh, wait, I've made a mistake. I'll cross that out and I'll write that here. You won't get the mark. All right. It has to be written in here. And by doing that, you will get 2 marks. So well done. Now that takes us on to some questions for yourself to get stuck into. Now these will take you a while to get through. Here, we've got 2 digit by 2 digit. So very straightforward. Again, just work on placing the larger number on top and you will do 2 calculations. Still with the place holding 0 and everything as we've just practiced. And the numbers will get progressively more challenging to work with. And then we've got your more classic style of 2 times 3 digit number. Now, the only difference that you'll have here versus a SATs is you're going to need to lay these out yourself. So again, just lay the larger number out on top and the smaller one below, and just make sure the ones are in the same column. Put your placeholder 0 in, and then it'll be good to go. But that is it, essentially. There's lots of questions to practice here. Grab a calculator. Use the calculator to work out. Sometimes a really good way to do it is to work out the answer first so you know what the answer should be. All right. So if you were doing, I don't know, like this one, for example, 38 times 24. So I've got my calculator here. So I'll do 38 times 24. Because remember, the goal of this isn't to just get the right answer. It's to learn how to do the strategy. Okay. Yes, we want the right answer. So 38 times 24, I know now is 912. So as I'm working along, I can sort of see if I'm going to end up in the right sort of area. And then if I get the wrong answer, or I can see that when I'm adding, I've not got a 2 in the ones column, I can sort of take a step back and think, right, well, I've made a mistake there, rather than just thinking I've got it wrong. So we can actually unpick what's happening. So that's a really good idea to sometimes have on some of these, just use the calculator and work out the answer first, and then go through the process and see if you actually get the answer. All right. So well done this week. Lots to go through. I'll hand you back over to myself in the video, and we'll round up week 6. Well, that's long multiplication and the grid method essentially solved. So hopefully after looking at those modelled examples from myself and the SATs examples, we can really see what long multiplication is all about. And essentially, as scary as it can be, it's actually one of the most simplest strategies. As long as you remember the steps, ultimately all we're doing is multiplying and recording our answers as we go step by step. And the key bit to it all, right back to my first video, is presentation. If we're messy and reckless when we're laying it out and we're carrying out our multiplications, we will get in a jumble and we'll make mistakes. So everything with long multiplication comes back to knowing our times tables and making sure that we are precise and neat when we're working through the strategy, and then just making sure that we go through the three steps essentially, which are the 2 multiplications, and then making sure we add up at the end. And other than that, that's it. Okay. If you want to dive again a bit deeper into it, pick up a copy of Sats Like a Ninja. That's really going to help. But other than that, that's this week done. I recommend diving back into the questions again and giving them another go if you need to, because practice doesn't make perfect, but it will make permanent. Practice makes permanent. The more we do things, the better we'll get and the more confident we will be. So hopefully at this point you're much more confident about long multiplication, the grid method, and you're ready to grab those 4 marks that are going to be available. Some people tend to just jump to them straight away and get them out of the way in the SATS papers because they can be consuming in terms of time. But if you're confident with all of your other strategies, working through the paper normally is probably the best way to go. So well done for getting stuck in this lesson. I hope you found it useful, and I hope that long multiplication and the grid method is something you can tick off your list and smash it when it comes to SATs.